my mother was from Davia, which is outside of Tripoli.
Yes.
And my father was Limna, which is outside of Tripoli. We're Arcadians.
Arcadians, yes. A match made in heaven.
And my father-in-law is from Megalopolis.
Megalopolis, yes.
Megalopolis.
Not too far from Tripoli, yes.
Yeah. So
So, where did they meet?
Who?
Your...
You and I? My husband and I?
No, actually, your parents and his parents. And
We're at church, at the Cambridge Church.
at the Cambridge Church.
We were Cambridgeotis.
Cambridge Church. And that's where you met George?
I always knew George because my parents were friendly with his family.
family.
So we used to celebrate Apocryphs sometimes together.
Of course.
Yeah, we had good times together. And George ended up being president of the Cambridge Church. And then we had a little boy, Philip. And we were thinking, where are we going to take this little boy to church? So one day, George Markin McAlephus.
Yes, I think I'm speaking to him. Now, where did you which church did you get married in?
We got married in the Cambridge Church.
Cambridge Church.
Yeah. And we were thinking, where are we going to go to church with this little boy?
Philip, yes.
And George Markin said to George, came one day and said, Father
Yes.
Dr. Vecanias
Yes.
and Angela Bassett want to have a church in this area so that we can have our children involved. And George said, that sounds like a good idea. I will come along and join whatever meeting there is. So that's how we became involved. And George was one of the original 9.
Yes.
He was number 9, who did the calling and set the foundation for the church.
Now, was he involved in the naming of the church?
Oh, I loved that.
Yes. So how did that work out?
Oh, that was wonderful. So they ended up buying a Methodist church.
Yes.
In Newton Lower Falls.
Perrin Methodist Episcopal Church in Newton Lower Falls.
Newton Lower Falls.
Yes.
And the question was, we had no money, and we had no name for the church. So the men decided that they were going to charge $5 a vote. And if you got enough votes, we got enough votes on this particular evening, the church was going to be named whatever raised the most money.
Exactly.
Now, Mr. Markin, Mr. Anthony Markin, wanted it to be Saint Sophia. His wife was Sophia, and he liked that.
Yes.
So he was working so hard to raise money for Sophia. But then we had a group of Dimitrides.
Yes.
4 Dimitrides got together. Let's see, one was Salavrakos, one was a Kondakis, and one was another one who had the Reservoir Provision Company in I think it's Dedham, I don't know
Okay.
where, or Newton. And they raised most of the money.
I see.
They raised a small fortune.
Now, I was told that nobody cheated now.
Oh, no.
Okay.
They were very careful. They were. And we would wait to hear who is winning now.
Yes, who's winning, yes.
But it was between Sophia and Dimitri.
Yes.
And Dimitri raised the most money. So our church became St. Demetrius. It was a wonderful evening. We had coffee and pastry, and we were waiting for this back and forth to end, and so we became St. Demetrius.
Wonderful.
It was wonderful. Father Ernest, I believe, is still living.
Yes, 86.
Is he? He was a wonderful man.
Yes, everybody speaks highly of him.
He was a wonderful man.
I'll try to talk to him, to interview him.
He was great with the children.
Yes.
They adored him.
Yes.
He was wonderful. So, getting back to the early church.
Yes.
I remember the first year we had a St. Demetrius. Well, the floor of the church in Newton Lower Falls was full of holes.
Oh.
And we said, how are we going to serve coffee with the floor full of holes? Well, we all brought our bridge tables, and we set them up strategically so that no one's heels would get into the holes on the floor.
See?
And that's We celebrate. That's when I remember our first St. Demetrius.
Excellent.
Basement of the church, so
Yes.
attractive with our tables and our flowers and our linen, covering every single hole so that no one would get.
Good one. Yes.
It was fun. At that time too, several women had teas. And I remember Mrs. Markin, Mrs. Anthony Markin,
Yes.
had a wonderful tea. She had every kind of pastry you could imagine. And there was never a fee. There was just a bowl at the head of the table, and you put in whatever you wanted. And I can remember, there were several teas, but I had Philip, the little one there.
Yes.
And I couldn't do too much, but I kept busy. Oh, we used to have picnics on the river.
On the river, yes.
On the river, because we were right there.
Yes.
And what could be better than to go outside and just watch the river go by and
Yeah.
enjoy that.
And then you moved to the new church.
Oh, I don't remember much about the new.
Okay.
We moved to the Methodist church,
Yes.
and that was our church.
Yes.
And we used to have Sunday school there.
Yes.
I think I was a Sunday school teacher. I'm sure I was.
And you remember that the Sunday school met often at the TV repair shop of Mr. Loomis?
Lee Loomis. Yeah.
Lee Loomis, yes.
He was very involved too.
Yes.
Very involved.
I found in the Boston Globe yesterday photographs of his shop front.
Really?
Yes. Lee Loomis, yes. He sold TVs, he sold air conditioners. Yeah.
Well, that's where the second church was built.
Yes.
Where well, actually, where the post office is now.
Yes, correct.
In Newton Lower Falls was our
Yes.
second
Correct.
church. But the first church was just, we were all so excited.
Oh, I
to
can
have-
imagine. Yeah.
And I met a woman the other day. She said, I was number 80 to join St. Demetrius.
Ah! Yes.
Yeah, it was important. The men felt that they should have at least 100
100.
before they
Yeah.
did much of anything else.
Yes.
Well, in the meantime, we had no iconostasio. We had no icons, nothing. And then the church in,
Hartford, or is it?
no,
New
it
Haven?
was New London, Connecticut.
New London, yes.
New London, Connecticut, called and said, we have an iconostasio, we have all these icons and furniture. So the men talked it over, and they thought it would be a good idea to go down and get whatever they were willing to give us. And George said, I can go, but my wife is expecting a baby. So the minute the baby is born, I'll get in the truck and we'll go down. But we have to wait for this baby to be born. So my William was born. So he was the first child of a member to be born.
Oh, nice.
At
Was
St.
he
Demetrius.
baptized there?
He was baptized at St. Demetrius. So John Kandakis gave
Yeah.
us a truck with a driver. And I believe Chris Anton went along with George to New London.
Oh, to London, yes.
And when they were in New London, there was so much stuff, they hired a second driver
Oh,
to
yes.
bring everything. And they arrived in Boston 3 days later, and George said they arrived in the middle of the night, and they had called the parishioners, and the parishioners all came and unloaded the trucks. He said, icons, chairs, whatever they wanted, galore. It was wonderful. So we had a furnishings committee, and the furnishings committee decided that there should be new icons on the,
Iconostas.
because our church was Demetrius and they did not have, there was not a Demetrius.
Correct.
So we had a furnishings committee meeting at our house. And my mother came downstairs to see the fellows. My mother lived with us. My mother didn't my husband didn't want my mother to live alone. So he insisted that she come. And after some finagling, we had to promise to live with her for a couple of years until we had another child. And then she said she'd think about it, she'd come with us. Well, George said, if we live with you for 2 years, you're coming to live with us after that. And she said, we'll see. He said, you're going to come live with us. Well, anyhow, William was born, so Mother came and lived with us. And they were having a meeting in the church, in our kitchen. And Mother came down to say hello to the fellows, and they were saying, oh, Mrs. Close, we're thinking of having new icons painted. And Mother said, have you chosen Christ yet? And they said, no. Well, Mother said, I would like to purchase Christ
donate.
in memory of my husband. So that's how. And I think Van Karajanis had St. John. And I don't know
That's
how.
great, yes.
And it was so nice.
Yes.
And then when they decided to have another series of
Yes.
paintings for the Iconostasio, Mother said, I want the second one too. And this time I'm going to include my family. They in honor of them too. And my little granddaughter used to love to see her name, Elizabeth.
Oh, yes.
She was specifically mentioned because Mother had 3 grandchildren by my brother, and I just have 1 grandchild, a little girl, Elizabeth. So it was...
Well, that sounds great.
It was wonderful.
Fabulous.
She was very happy to do anything she could for the church. What else did we used to do? Oh, the furnishings committee decided that there weren't enough seats, chairs for everybody. If we had coffee or whatnot, where were they all going to sit? So they went on a campaign for $5 a chair. And I can remember George calling people saying, how many members are there in your family? 4? Do you mind buying 4 chairs? That's $20. And so they got more than enough. I can remember my mother bought 10 chairs. She said, maybe somebody can't afford it. I'm going to get
Good
10.
for her. Good for
She
her.
was so funny.
Yes.
She loved having a church. And she could walk to it from
Yeah.
our house. And sometimes she'd pick up Mrs. Canavas.
Yes.
And the 2 of them would go to church together. After an agape service
Yes.
at the church, George invited everyone back to our house. And we had made preparation. And the kids and the men all played football in the front yard and in the backyard. And we had, Chris and Anton wanted to, lamb's legs, and
Yes.
lamb's heads.
Oh.
So,
Oh.
so he brought those.
Oh.
But we had other lamb and all kinds of food for everyone. We had a wonderful day.
Oh, this
It
is
was after an agape service.
Yes.
It was very special.
wonderful.
We weren't that many people at the beginning.
And look at now, huh?
Look at now, I look, if I know 10 people, it's a
Yeah.
lot. And I think it's wonderful that people are bringing their children.
Absolutely, yes.